Welcome back to my channel, and for today I'm going to be looking at this pair of Grove Desert shoes in forest green chromexcel. Now these are made by Crown and they are located in Northampton, England. Now I'm a little embarrassed to say that I had not heard of Crown until about a month ago. They reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in doing a video on one of their shoes. Right away, I looked at their website and discovered that they mostly specialize in high-quality sneakers, but they do have a couple of really nice plain-toe derby shoes like these. And, of course, I asked for a pair in green because what else do I talk about on this channel? I'm always talking about green shoes on this channel. I have too many pairs of green shoes. But anyway, this is a sponsored video, yes, but I will remind you, the viewer, that I do not just accept sponsors unless it is a product where I think there's a high probability I will genuinely like it and that I will actually use it in my day-to-day life. I've actually turned down several sponsors recently because they were very nice products, but I just wouldn't use them in my day-to-day life. So, having said that, I'll try to be as objective as I can. So, let's get started. Well, to begin this video, I want to mention that this derby shoe, it is a plain-toe shoe, but it's not a butcher because it has two separate pieces, and that's what makes it a derby, or like they say in England, derby. Now, Crown makes their shoes in Northampton, England. Now, anybody who knows about Goodyear welted and quality shoes would know that Northampton is home to a lot of the most famous brands, including Crockett & Jones, Loake, Cheney, and John Lobb, to name a few. And Crown is another company with a long history in England. In fact, they've been around for over 100 years, since 1908 in fact. Now, Crown is more known, I would say, for their sneakers. They make some really nice high-quality leather sneakers. That's really their main focus, as you can tell if you go to their website. But I was really curious about this plain-toe derby shoe that they had. And I don't think anybody else has covered these on YouTube so far. And just in general, I'm a huge fan of plain-toe shoes, and I thought this would be a perfect shoe for me. Just like a lot of other companies, they get their leather from not only Horween, but Badalassie and various other tanneries all over the world. Now, as far as the leather goes, pretty much any leather that comes out of the Horween factory in Chicago is going to be excellent. And this color of chromexcel is known as forest green. It is just a beautiful, stunning leather if you're into green. There's nothing I don't like about this color. I just think it's one of the best colors of green chromexcel that you can get. In fact, I'm going to say that I wish more shoe manufacturers would use this color. But at the very least, I'm glad to see that Crown is using this color in addition to other shoemakers out there. This is probably my favorite color of darker olive green, chromexcel that is. Compared, say, to the Allen Edmonds darker olive which they use, that's a totally different leather, probably not from Horween. You can see the Allen Edmonds has more of a gray look to it, not as much green to it. Compared to the Cheney leather which they use, the Cheney is obviously more bright. This is not quite as loud as the Cheney leather. And just as another comparison, you can see it's very different from the spruce kudu that Parkhurst offers. Compared to this pair of Caswell boots, which is another type of chromexcel, this is a different dark olive chromexcel from Horween. You can see it's quite a bit different from the leather that Caswell used as well. And if I have to be honest, I think this leather that Crown is using looks nicer to my eyes. It just has more green in it, which is what I prefer. And like I already mentioned, these are not quite as loud as some of the other green shoes that I own. So these are rather easy to wear, especially if you're concerned about them being too loud, which they are not. The other thing to mention is that these shoes just smell awesome. They have a really nice chromexcel smell that lasts for a long time even after you wear them. Now here's the interesting thing. When I first saw these shoes on the website, I thought they were 360-degree Goodyear welted shoes, but as it turns out, these are actually stitched down construction. Yes, they are 360 degrees, but they're stitched down. Now, when Crown reached out to me, I wasn't sure which sole edge that I wanted, so I decided to let them choose either a natural sole or the toffee sole. They sent me the natural sole, which is probably more of what I wanted. I wanted something that looked a little bit more cream color, something that had a little more contrast. I think it looks really nice. Now, for some people, this might be too loud. For me, I don't mind personally. And if this color is too loud, you can simply just order a brown sole or even a black sole. All of those are going to look great with green. Now, even though this is a plain-toe derby shoe, there are several qualities about this shoe that actually remind me more of a sneaker. It's sort of like a hybrid between a plain-toe derby and a sneaker. Now, one of the things to know about this shoe right away is that it is fully unlined. There is no lining in this shoe at all. But it is important to note that there is an extra piece of leather at the heel cap intentionally put there so that it grips better to your heel, which does do an excellent job of preventing heel slip if that does happen. Now, because these shoes are unlined, I'm going to say that I would strongly suggest using a shoe horn every time you put these on, because as I learned very quickly, the upper is fairly flimsy. It can very easily crease when you put your heel in the shoe. So to protect this shoe, I highly suggest you use a shoe horn. It's even more important with this shoe than some of the other shoes that I own because of this reason that it's not lined. You can probably see there's already some creases on mine at the heel, and this is with using a shoe horn. So if you want to prevent this sort of damage or creasing at the heel, use a shoe horn. Now, the stitching on these is a nice little detail that most people probably wouldn't even notice, but I appreciate that they used a lighter green stitch on the stitching. They could have used black or brown, but they intentionally used a lighter green stitching, both at the sides of the shoe and also at the heel cup. The eyelets are a standard brass kind of eyelet, and you get 4 of them, which is great because I find that if you have 4 or 5 eyelets, it just locks you in better to a shoe. I tend to not like shoes that have 3 eyelets as much just because it doesn't really lock me in as well. One other little detail I appreciate is seeing the sizing and details written on the upper. You can tell this was done with a human hand. So every single pair does have a lot of detail that goes into them. Now, as far as the insole goes, the footbed has a nicely fuzzy leather insole. The closest brand that I can think of is probably Alden in terms of how it feels, but it's sort of like in between Alden and Crockett & Jones in terms of how the insole feels. It's quite firm to begin with, and I'll tell you, it took me about 3 or 4 wears to finally start seeing the impression being developed with my feet. So it is a pretty solid insole, and it does take time to break in and mold your impression. And just like many other high-quality shoe brands that are created in Northampton, this includes a half-heel sock liner. In this case, the heel sock liner reminds me a lot of Crockett & Jones. And just look at that finely detailed print that's on the heel. That artwork just looks awesome. I appreciate these little details within this brand of shoes. The other thing I wasn't able to find out or confirm is if they put cork inside the shoes. I do not know. However, having said that, there definitely is a midsole placed in between the stitched down construction and the crepe outsole. Now, how did I feel when I first started wearing these? Well, I would say they were surprisingly firm on the inside, especially at the ball area and the toes. It does take time to break in a little bit. I was surprised by that. Now, the upper really doesn't require any break-in because it's unlined. It shouldn't really cause you any pain because it's unlined, but the insole definitely took me some time to break in. As far as sizing goes, I usually wear a size 7 in all shoes from England. With Crown, it's the same. This is the same size I wear with Crockett & Jones, the same size with Cheney, same size with Loke. I'm a 7 in almost everything that comes from England. So if you're normally a size 8 in US shoes such as Alden or Allen Edmonds, then 7 is where you'd want to be with Crown. Now, at least for me, the heel to ball lines up where it should, and my pinky toe is still touching the walls of the upper. So everything does fit how it should. This is definitely the correct size for me. When I first tried these on, they did feel a little bit snug, almost a little bit tight, but there wasn't any pain, and the shoes do start to stretch pretty much immediately after you start wearing them. Now let's talk about the last with this shoe. This last is something totally unique that I've never really quite experienced. It kind of reminds me of the Allen Edmonds 73 last, which was an older last that I don't think they use anymore. And it also reminds me a little bit of Alden's military last, or the 379X last, which is the same. The reason why I say that is because there is definitely a rounder, wider toe shape. You can definitely see that it's a rounder toe and it's wider. The reason why it reminds me of the 73 last from Allen Edmonds is because this is a shorter last. It's not long. In fact, it's even shorter than the 73. It's probably the shortest last that I own, but this last works simply because the ball area is very wide. There's plenty of room in the ball. However, the volume above the toes is not extremely steep. Even though it's a wide last at the widest part of the foot, it's still fairly flat across. This kind of helps your feet feel more locked in. And because the last is different in that it's shorter and a little bit wider at the ball, to me it does resemble a sneaker in a lot of ways. So if you're looking for a shoe that's not going to make your feet look longer, this is definitely a great option. Some people complain about dress shoes making their feet look too long or making them look clownish. If you're concerned with that at all, this is definitely going to look more like a sneaker in terms of the overall length. One other very important detail I want to mention is about the instep. I applaud Crown for doing a great job with the instep. What I mean is that they provided a lot of room at the instep. You can see here on my feet that the lacing gap is fairly close. This is because this shoe has a lot of instep room. Now, this could be a problem for some men out there that have a lower volume instep. This shoe might even be impossible for some men that have a lower volume instep, but at least for guys like me that have a higher instep, this is perfect. It works out beautifully. I also like that they included flat laces. However, if you don't like these brown laces, you could easily substitute them with something of like a lighter green. What I mean is more of like a Loden green or like a almost gray color lace. That would work perfectly. Now, Crown were very, very generous with what they sent me. First of all, this box that they come in is just very, very nice. And they also give you an additional pair of these flat laces in case you need them. They come with these nice shoe bags. They sent me this really nice thank you card. They also sent me this nice little card holder, which is also made out of the forest green chromexcel. Very nice little gift if you want to just put a couple of your credit cards or your driver's license inside. So thank you, Crown, for including this little gift. Now, what are my criticisms of this shoe, if there are any? Well, this isn't really a criticism. You probably know from some of my other videos that crepe is usually not my favorite type of outsole. I have a pair of Alden shoes that have a crepe sole. They're extremely comfortable. The only concern I have, though, is that sometimes they can get slick if I walk on the wrong kind of surface when it's wet. But for any kind of dry conditions, crepe can be really comfortable, and it's also lightweight, which makes it very easy for you to walk faster in. I do wish they offered this shoe with a leather sole or some kind of rubber sole. Now, I totally get where Crown was going with this shoe. They wanted to create something that was going to be highly comfortable. That's obviously one of their main focuses with their brand. They specialize in a lot of sneakers, and this is a plain toe derby, but it still has a lot of qualities that resemble a sneaker. So I get where they were going with this crepe sole. You could always have it resoled with a leather sole in the future if you want, but I'm just saying that if you're going to choose this derby shoe, you're probably going to be choosing it largely because of comfort. So just like with most things in life, crepe is sort of a trade-off. Do you want something that's really comfortable and lightweight, but might potentially be slick? Or do you want something heavier that is going to be maybe better traction, but it's going to be heavier? Now, one detail I was not able to figure out with this shoe is that I do not know if it has a shank in it. I don't know if there's a wooden shank or a steel shank. That information I was not able to find out. How does the arch support feel with this shoe? Well, I would say it's pretty good. Not the absolute best that I've had, but at least for my feet, I feel like it supports my arch pretty well. The shape of the last is not quite as flat as some of the other lasts that I have, but it's also not quite as arched as, say, the Alden Modified last, which I love, somewhere in between. One other subtle detail that I want to highlight is that the heel stack in these, it's a little bit lower than some of the other shoes that I own. What I mean by that is that when you put these shoes on your feet, they might feel more like a sneaker in some ways because the heel is not quite as raised up as some of the other brands like Alden or even Allen Edmonds. At least with the pair that I received, my heel is a little bit lower to the ground. It's not quite as tall. If that's a problem for you, then this might not be the best shoe option. For me, it's not a problem because I don't have any pain with this, but for some men, they might want something that has a little bit more of a raised heel. The overall weight with these shoes is fairly light, not surprising given that they're unlined and also that there's a crepe sole. So this is definitely not a heavy shoe. Another benefit about this shoe being unlined is that it makes for an excellent shoe in the very hot summer months. And right now where I'm at in Kansas City, it's been really hot the last month. I've sometimes worn these without socks and they're very comfortable. They're just an excellent summer shoe. But on the other hand, probably not what you want to wear in the winter in the Midwest. So what I'm trying to say about the comfort and feel of the shoe is that the insole is actually going to feel more like a dress shoe, but the outsole and the other parts of the shoe are going to feel more like a sneaker. So it's really like a hybrid between a casual dress shoe and a sneaker. Well, let's talk about the chromexcel lottery. Did I win the lottery with this pair? Well, yes, I did. I may have just gotten lucky, but whoever constructed this pair, they chose really good pieces of leather for the upper. All of the creases on my pair are exactly what you would want with chromexcel. There's no really big, ugly creases. Everything just looks excellent. One other very important thing I want to mention with these shoes is that if you buy them, you will probably want to purchase combination shoe trees. Because, for example, if I use the solid shoe trees that Allen Edmonds makes, those do not fit very well within the shoe. Because the shoe is wider at the ball and toe area, like a sneaker, you're going to want a combination shoe tree so that you can push it up against the walls of the upper. You need something that's going to fill up the toe box easier, so I highly recommend combination shoe trees for this pair. Because these are chromexcel, you'll probably want to be a little careful with them because chromexcel does get dinged, dented, blemished very easily. You probably don't want to off-road with these shoes. I pretty much would just wear these if I'm going out to run errands or go walk around on streets. I wouldn't really take them off-road because the chromexcel will easily get blemished. Now, if you like that kind of look, then fine, but I'm just saying, me personally, I don't like to take my chromexcel shoes like this and go hiking. Now, let's talk about the price and the value. The total price of these is $339 USD. Do I think they're worth $339 US dollars? Well, to answer this simply, I would say probably yes. First of all, if you're going to purchase any kind of shoes that are handmade in England, most of them are well over $400 at this point, and a lot of them are over $500. Especially in the last 4 or 5 years, with inflation and other costs that have gone up, it's getting more and more expensive to get a pair of high-quality British shoes. Now, I realize that $339 is still a lot of money for a lot of people right now. So I get that not everybody's going to want to spend that much on a pair of shoes. However, you have to also be aware that over the last 4 or 5 years, prices of shoe construction have gone up a lot. And if you look at other brands like Loake, Cheney, Crockett & Jones, all of their prices have gone up quite a lot too. Even Allen Edmonds have gone up a lot within the last 2 years. So prices are going up all across the board when it comes to quality shoes. And these actually come in a little bit lower priced than a lot of other shoes across the pond. For example, if you buy a pair of Cheney shoes, you're probably going to spend over 500 USD. But with this pair, you can get them at 339. I wouldn't say exactly cheap, but less expensive than some of the other brands, and that could be because they're unlined and there's other little things in the shoe that might make it a little less expensive to construct. So if you're looking for something that's sort of like a hybrid between a sneaker and a really nice plain toe derby, this is an excellent option. And in my own subjective view, I do think they are worth the price. I want to thank Crown at Northampton for reaching out to me and introducing me to their brand. As someone who's totally new to their brand, I'm going to continue watching as they develop for years to come. I hope they put out more plain toe options, and I'd like to see some boot plain toe options from them as well. They could probably make a killer boot with this type of green chromexcel or any of the other colors that they offer for the Grove Desert Derby shoe. One of the other things I forgot to mention earlier in this video is that crepe soles really don't age the best. I mean, they pick up all kinds of nasty things on the bottom of them, and they look ugly very quickly, so if that's something that bothers you, maybe crepe might not be the best choice of outsole. But on the other hand, if you want something really comfortable, this is a great option. And if you do want to help support my channel, I do have an affiliate link below this video where if you purchase anything from Crown, I get a small percentage of the sale. So thank you. Well, I hope you got something useful out of this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon on the next review. Bye for now.